We're now discussing image setup for emails through Emma, specifically using a quarterly newsletter for fall 2012. So within the newsletter itself, there's a couple different pieces. The top banner here is 634 pixels wide. There's a file in Dropbox in the email folder where you can just change out the text here because that's actually not real text. That's on the image itself. So you have to save it at that same exact file size. In general, I try to save images at the exact file size they need to be, for the main reason that that's the smallest file size you can get it without it looking blurry. But that said, you could throw up any size image you want, the actual physical image, and then get the HTML to resize it on its own. So on this one, it's probably that same size. The ones on the inside, this one here is a little bit smaller than this, as you can see. So it's 628 across. But if you go into the actual, let's say it was 1,000 pixels across, but you still wanted it to show up in that same dimension. If you go into Emma and you click the HTML editor and you find the image tag, you can do it in a couple different places. You can do it within this. You can change the width within either the style tag or the image tag itself. So I'm going to do it in both places. You can do it like this. And there's specific tags, width, height, that you don't have to do with a CSS tag, but you can do it that way. But you can also put it in the style if you wanted. So you could do width 28 pixels like that.
That's how I'm used to doing it.
Yeah, it'll do it either way. And now that's what that does. It says whatever size image this is, you need to make it 628 width. The height will automatically set itself to the height that it needs to be.
Okay.
So if it's 1,000 by 300 and you shrink it down, it'll to 628. It'll be 628 by whatever the non-skewed image size is. Normally you do widths and not heights, but sometimes there's times when you set the height itself and not the width. Now with this, I actually keep most of these images the exact same size. I just got one and then have just been doing it from there. So technically you could set a height tag, but we know the width is, you can't go any more width. You can't do any different width. So I just leave the height tag by itself. So you click save. Easiest way to sort of recreate these images, and right now I'm doing a lot of this work, but first thing I do is drag and drop it directly into Photoshop. What that does is sets up your template at the sizes you need without having to do anything else. So from there, a lot of times the first thing I'll do is select the entire box and then do a new layer, new fill layer, and just do a solid color, and then usually just do white. So if you do new layer, choose it to be white. And now you're starting with a blank canvas that you can do whatever you want on. And once you're here, I'll let you can play around with the creative from there, but that's how I sort of start those images.
Okay.
The next thing, which you'll be involved in, and probably the point where you do it all, is the square images. So I originally had tried to make it where the square images had this border around it through HTML and not through the image itself, so we wouldn't have to put that border on every time. Microsoft Outlook on the PC will not do it, well, for some reason. So I finally just gave up after trying a million different things and just said, okay, fine, we'll do the images with the border. So if you grab these images, you'll see that border still is on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to create a brand new one, I drag it down and drop it in the box. This is what it did last time, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Have a great day.
you can always grab them from the
Dropbox.
previous newsletter. I try to keep them all. So like summer. Here's that image. And you'll notice it's 81 by 81. The reason why it's sort of an off number like that is the image itself is 75. I set them to be 75, and then it's got a 2-pixel padding on both sides, and then a 1-pixel border. So that's 6 on each side, 6, 75, and 81. So if it's being combative and won't let you pull it down from the web, you can drop it right in there. So the first thing you have to do with an image of this kind is it's a GIF, and that means the colors are indexed, which means there's only a set amount of colors that it's using to create this. And that's fine to save it that way, but if you were to drag and drop a new image on top of this, it's going to look funky because it's still full color and this is indexed color. So with a GIF, and you'll notice it says index over here. That only happens on GIF images. If it was a JPEG or a PNG, it wouldn't do that, and you'd be fine to start working. But with a GIF, and GIFs do that because you can save them as smaller file sizes, so it loads quicker and that sort of thing. So when you do an image like this, no one's really going to be able to tell that it's only got a certain amount of colors, the color palette. When a big image, it would look funky. But the first thing you got to do is go up to Image, Mode, and then choose Image, Mode, and choose RGB. RGB is for screen. CMYK is for print. So you choose RGB, and you're good to go. So let's say you want to create a brand new image with a donkey on it. Let's say you search donkey. And let's say you want to use the Shrek donkey here. You find your image. Let's go slow. And drag and drop it down into Photoshop. I know I clicked on you. There we go. I can drop it into Photoshop. So there's your donkey. Next you want to do is copy all the image, so you can drag and then hit copy, or you can do Command A, that'll select it all and hit copy, and then paste it just right on top of here. So there's your donkey, and if you take your cursor and you put it on the arrow, you can then drag it to where you want it to be. So let's say that's generally where you want it to be. First thing that I would do before I resize this to make it smaller is you drag and drop it in there. If you go over to your layer window, you can click the eyeball, and that turns the layer off. So you can see this layer underneath. And if I scroll in, you'll notice where the border is. So what you want to preserve the gray border and the white border, but then you want to get rid of everything else. So you click the selection tool, and then just select all of this. And another shortcut, if you hold Shift while you're dragging out, it'll stay proportionate. So if you know you're doing a square, it's a little bit easier just to hold Shift. And that way you can select it. So what you're telling it now is the layer, you're going to want it to be just within this bounding box. And since we're going to apply it to the donkey and not the other layer, you're still going to preserve this while having the donkey just fit in here. So if I go back over and turn the donkey back on, and then come down here, there's this layer mask button down at the bottom. When you click it, it's going to remove the donkey image of anywhere that was outside of that line. So you can see over here how this is. So there's the image, and then on top of it is your mask, which says I only want it to show this specific area. And this shows that they're linked. And when they're linked, that means if you resize the image, it's going to resize both of these different things. So, for example, if I resize this image, see it's both resizing. The donkey's getting more slender, but the fade is also going in. So it's doing both. It's the donkey's getting slender as well as the mask is getting more slender. That's not really what you want to do. What you want to do is keep the mask the same and get the donkey. So 2 quick clicks. You got to unlink them. So now you can choose either donkey or the mask. Donkey or the mask. What you want to do is leave the mask intact and then do the donkey. So if you click the donkey and then do the resize, and resize is Command T. It's one of these selections up here, but you'll use Command T all the time. Let's see, and then also Command plus and Command minus zooms in and out. So I can't really see the border over here, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to hold Shift here because I want the dimensions to stay the same of the donkey, but I want it just to get smaller. So there's that. And then you can sort of play around with it. Get it right where you want it, and then you click Enter. Now you've got your small donkey with the border. Now, with the same applies with the mask. Let's say for some reason you only wanted the mask to be half this size, or just a different shape or anything. You can click on the mask side, and then click T, and you can shrink it. So then it's shrinking that little the window that sort of sees it. And you can do a lot of interesting things with the mask. You can actually go in and, snip out little portions of it. For your case, it's probably just going to be this sort of thing, but that's how you do it there. So final step, you've got it ready to go right there. You go File, Save for Web. You can save it in 3 different file formats: GIF, JPEG, and PNG. PNGs are the only file type that will do transparent backgrounds. So if you had an image that it wasn't just a great square, it had, even if it was like a circle and you had those sides and you wanted it to, whatever was underneath that, so if the background of the website was blue and you wanted the circle and the blue to be underneath it, you have to save it as a PNG.
Okay.
JPEG is pretty common. GIF is what a lot of people use for small images. From how it's going to look on the back-end standpoint, exactly the same. Especially for a small image. When you get larger images, PNGs will be the best. JPEG's the next best. GIF's the worst. For a small image, you can even see, the difference between these 3 is just so minuscule that it doesn't really matter. So for the small little icons, I use just the GIF. You can leave all the rest of this. See, that's what it's saying. It's saying I've got 256 colors, and those are the colors I'm going to use.
Okay.
But you can leave everything else the same. Click Save. Fine for this. We'll go into and that's it. For stuff like this, I do this every time. I don't have like a file that I have set up that I then, because you'll get to being able to do that in 30 seconds or a minute. Then I just delete out of it. Do you have any questions about this so far?
I don't think so.
All right, that is our GIF Square Creator session.